when I work with couples who want to reignite their relationship, who want to improve their relationship, who want to connect on a deeper level, maybe they've kind of friend zoned each other and they're tired of that, and they want to connect and they want to build a strong, enduring bond. One obstacle I run into is that they are going to have to reallocate time and resources that they've dedicated to other things that are good things, but they're going to have to take away from those things and reallocate them to their relationship if they want a better relationship. You know, if you just want things to keep continuing, that's fine, and then pay me money to come complain about feeling disconnected, that's also fine too. But I guess I just have some kind of ulterior motive of like actually producing some change in clients. And so that's the sticking point for many people, is that they're going to have to actually say no to some things in order to say yes to their relationship. And I'll give you one couple in particular, and maybe this is a little controversial, so we'll see how this plays out with some folks. But they were overextended in just kind of every sphere of life, totally disconnected, and just feeling like we've got to make some adjustments because this level of disconnection is not good for us. And so I had them visualize buckets, all these different buckets in their life. There's the work bucket, there's the parenting bucket, there's the personal hobbies bucket, and the health and wellness bucket, right? And there's also the relationship bucket. And I said, okay, if you think about all the buckets in your life of where you dedicate your time and your resources, think about how much you're putting in, into the relationship bucket. And they said very little. That bucket's pretty low, almost empty, right? Maybe 2% of our time and energy goes into that, if that. I said, okay, so the only way you're going to have the time and the energy for each other to achieve your goal of greater connection is to take from the other buckets. It's not going to magically appear out of nowhere, time and resources, unless you know something I don't. But that hasn't been my case. If I'm going to say yes to something, that only comes from saying no to something else. And so they had a very child-centered marriage. Everything they did revolved, yes, around work and making money, but everything else went to kids, their sporting events, spending time with their kids, indulging in their kids' hobbies and interests, supporting them through their big emotions, with friends at school and all that. Everything was centered around their kids. It was a child-centered marriage. And so here's what I said to them is, I think in order for you to have a good marriage, and ultimately your kids need you to have a good marriage. So if their big priority is their kids, yes, their kids need them to have conversations and to drive them to sporting events, but their kids also need them to have a good marriage. I said, you're going to have to take some time and resources out of the kid bucket in order to pour into the marriage bucket. And that was a challenging conversation, and I was a little nervous with even saying it, but I know the hazards that come from a child-centered marriage, and I know the benefits that come from the research to kids when parents have a good, healthy relationship and partnership. And so with some time, they were like, not every weekend needs to be dedicated to, driving our kids around. They can start grabbing some rides from family and friends. We don't have to taxi them everywhere. And they can, maybe have some sleepovers or some weekends doing this or that. And they started kind of reorganizing things so that they weren't completely abandoning their kids. I'm not advocating for that. But they shifted the center from being a child-centered marriage to something that was more balanced. Obviously, they still dedicated time and money and resources to their children, but they just took, let's say, 5% from the kid bucket and put that into the marriage bucket. And with time, they found that they were starting to reconnect with each other. It's like, oh my gosh, I think we actually like each other, when we could actually sit down look each other in the eye and have a conversation and support each other and show up for each other. So maybe for you, it's not the kid bucket. Maybe it's the career bucket. Maybe it's the personal hobbies bucket or your health bucket. But if you want a healthy marriage and you're just finding it difficult to invest in it, consider that you're going to have to sacrifice from some other focus in order to prioritize your marriage.